I now call this a regular meeting of the Committee of the Whole to order at 5:30 p.m. Please call the roll.
Ms. Pearson?
Present.
Mr. Schubert?
Present.
Ms. McCall?
Present.
Ms. Bennett?
Present.
Mr. Carpenter?
Here.
Ms. Haley?
Here.
Ms. Stanford?
Here.
With 7 members present, we have a quorum.
We will now take a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As we start each board meeting, it bears reminding that the mission of Rockford Public Schools is to collaboratively engage all students in a first-class education for a changing world. It also bears reminding that the Rockford Public Schools equity vision is to create learning environments that work for all students and interrupt the predictability of student outcomes based on zip code. We want to take a moment and thank Ms. Kim Pedersen for working behind the scenes to produce the board's broadcast via YouTube, live stream, and Comcast Channel 20. Are there any changes or corrections or additions to the meeting minutes? If not, is there a consensus to approve? Thumbs up, nod head. Thank you. Ms. Stanford will now lead stakeholders committee portion of the meeting.
Okay. So for the Stakeholders Committee, we will start with a look at the Stakeholder Committee's 12-month agenda. Our feature presenter tonight will be Dr. Antoine Reed, who will give us an update on the progress of our parent-guardian listening sessions. But first, let's start by celebrating the graduated classes of 2023.
I know it seems like such a simple thing to do, but with the abnormal circumstances that our class has endured over these past 4 years, it is impressive to have made it this far.
We are confronted with the abrupt transition to online learning, social distancing from loved ones, experiencing economic hardship, and facing unpredictable and frightening circumstances.
Amidst these unthinkable challenges, the fact that you are in your seats here almost 3 years later is not only evidence of your academic accomplishments, but also a testament to your adaptability, perseverance, and courage to push past significant barriers and obstacles to follow your dreams and reach your goals.
Whatever personal challenges you endured during your time in high school, remember that you are capable, you are intelligent, and you can think for yourself, and no one can take that from you.
No one in this crowd or on this stage has to be a product of their environment. In the end, you make your own choices and you change your own circumstances.
I can't forget the advice that Matt Green gave me. Alongside the countless revisions and suggestions he made onto my papers that made me a better writer. He also told me to just believe. And as corny as that sounds, believing in yourself is a very powerful notion. Congratulate yourself and be proud. Let go of any doubts that you may have about the future. Let this graduation be proof that you can certainly achieve a fulfilling life.
You don't need to have everything figured out in advance. Take things one step at a time and learn as you go. Remember, challenges that once seemed insurmountable now seem like small bumps in the road in retrospect. Keep moving forward and taking the next small step.
The class of 2023 is more than just a group of Google Meet experts and Zoom masters, but a formidable union of fighters, visionaries, and change makers. And it's not that we might or that we can, but that we will begin the movement for positive change, united, determined, and forever unstoppable. And that movement begins here.
So my fellow graduates, as we don our caps and gowns, let us embrace the bittersweet feeling of this moment, for it signifies both an end and a new beginning. We stand here not only as graduates, but as the architects of our own futures, ready to leave an indelible mark on the world.
I'm excited to see what life has in store for us. Therefore, dream big, work hard, and never give up.
The future is bright. We got this. Congratulations to us all, class of 2023.
Okay, that's a tough act to follow. Here we go. Okay, summer sports camps are underway. You'll hear a more detailed wrap-up in the fall from RPS 205's Director of Athletics, Activities, and Program Development. Here are some stats so far. 5 weeks of camps located at Auburn, East, Guilford, Jefferson, and the UW Health Sports Factory. Sports instruction offered for 13 different sports: soccer, cheerleading, football, basketball, volleyball, bowling, track and field, cross country, softball, baseball, wrestling, golf, and swimming. Approximately 85 kids participated in the first week of camp held at the UW Health Sports Factory. Week 2 had 146 kids registered, and week 3 had 157 registered. The following weeks are open for registration or are opening soon. Great job to the athletics team of Dawn Williamson and Abby Olson for putting together such a comprehensive and well-planned summer athletic schedule, and to all our coaches and staff who are giving their time to help train and teach our kids. Our top item this past week was, we don't have a top item, but our featured blog post was the Auburn High School JROTC cadets advanced to the National Academic Bowl Championship. After advancing through 2 intense phases of online competition, Auburn's JROTC academic team competed in the JROTC Academic Bowl Championship, June 23rd to 27th in Washington, D.C. Only 32 teams in the nation advanced to the final competition. Read more about their journey on the 205 Vibe. The NCAA live event, also known as the Summer Showcase, returned to Rockford this year. 40 basketball teams from Illinois and Ohio competed at the UW Health Indoor Sports Factory the weekend of June 16th through the 18th. This event is offered as a recruiting tool, allowing college coaches to come and take a look at our kids. All our high school varsity boys basketball teams participated. Shout out to Dawn Williamson and her athletic team for a well-managed, well-attended tournament and for advocating to bring the event back to Rockford. So I had a chance to go to several games during the weekend of the Summer Showcase, and I was very excited to see how much participation there was, how many fans were there, and especially the college coaches that were there. A couple of games I was at, all of the coaches' seats were full, watching our kids play, so it's a great opportunity, and it was a lot of fun. Next, I'd like to invite Dr. Antoine Reed to give us an update on the progression of our parent-guardian listening sessions.
Thank you so much for letting me share this space. So we ended the year with the parent group. We began to listen to this parent group. We had our first Zoom call. We had a lot of participation. So at this point, the parent group has begun to communicate back and forth with us. And we got a lot of suggestions. So I want to just give a lot of thanks to Ms. Dawn Williamson. We had 10 scholars from Lewis Lemon and 10 scholars from McIntosh that through the parent group, they wanted to be mentored. They needed some things to do this summer. Ms. Williamson is got all 20 of those in sports camps, and she's going to make sure they're paid for. So I'm really thankful for that. Also with that group, the parents wanted those scholars to be doing math. So I partnered with Jason, Mr. Barthel. He hooked me up with some technology. Those scholars will all be doing IXL math throughout the summer at an accelerated pace, hoping that they can make sure they're caught up. So these parents are asking for things that they want for their scholars to be successful to start next school year. And in turn, the parents do want the board to make the vote on the topics that are going to come up. So you're going to get an email from me, from Lori, that explains the 6 events. I think I talked to most of you about it, but at the beginning of the school year in September, the support week, the parents are going to talk about math that first day, ELA the second. Matt Zedeker is going to join and talk about the initiations and things that we have in our district to promote people from externally and internally within our district. We're going to talk about some community supports, and then that Friday is very important for us because board members are likely going to be at a designated location based on your quadrant. We have the 4 high schools, which will be our location. We're going to pass out shirts, pass out gear, be really welcoming, and they want to, meet our board. So each quadrant, they'll be going to that space to meet our board members, talk to you guys, get their gear, and we really want them to feel a part of the atmosphere and the teams based on the quadrant. So we're excited about that. So you should get an email coming from us talking about, the various things that are going to come up. One of the parent concerns that they had that most quadrants voiced the same was the type of communication. And we learned from the communication they do not want emails. The parent suggested that I do a video and send that video out. So I'm going to begin practicing that within my own cabinet, sending out a bi-weekly video, just practicing what that will look like. I met with Mr. Dotson. His team would possibly help me once a month to do that. They don't, want that email. They want to see a person and talk and then send a recap email just to make sure we're communicating the way they want to. So we'll begin to highlight our quadrants at the end of July. Mr. Barthel's technology piece will be complete and approved at that time. We'll begin to send out those videos to our parents every month, letting them know what we're doing based on our quadrant. So those are the takeaways. And in turn, the parents are agreeing that the #1 initiative for them to support in our district is attendance. They feel that anything that, like we were saying, that we want to get done, it has to get done through our scholars showing up. So they're willing to jump on board to support us with all initiatives as it relates to attendance. So those are the recaps of where we are with the parent community. People are joining on. We have more and more parents that are wanting to be added. We're not going to close it. I don't think Dr. Jarrett ever capped it, so we're just letting as many parents join as we want. And the goal is definitely by the end of the year that the parents are sufficient in running it and giving other information to other parents in a way that they see feasible. So right now, the team is continuing to grow, and more parents are wanting to join as they're hearing that we're listening to them and taking their feedback quickly and using it as things that we act upon. Any questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. The RAM, Rockford Association for Minority Management, annual Scholars Banquet was held Friday, June 16th. The mission of RAM is to promote excellence in African American youth and professionals in the community by providing programs inclusive of diverse education and cultural opportunities. RAM seeks to correct the lack of diversity in business management and address the needs to invest resources in helping gifted minority high school students pursue a college education. This year, approximately 25 local youth were awarded with scholarships. So this is another event that I was able to attend, and it was a great night. It was a lot of people there that I was surprised to see. It was great. And the one thing that I took away from this particular dinner was that we hear so much of the negative things that our students are doing and things that are happening in our community that we forget about these incredible gifted kids that we have in our district. And it was a great night to showcase them and all of it they have accomplished. So it was a nice night. Okay, a good time was had by all at the annual community celebration of Juneteenth at Sinisippi Park. This year, our PS 205 Special Programs Department had a table and interacted with the attendees. The Communications Department helped sponsor the event as well. Our PS 205 students also participated in the talent show. We'll finish our deck with the board calendar, reminding board members of the many opportunities available to interact with our students, families, and community each month. Make sure you check the calendar on a regular basis for the most up-to-date information. And now we'd like to offer an opportunity for board members to share any impactful interactions you've had with our stakeholders in the past month. Anyone? Ms. Pearson?
Yes, so first of all, I am so very proud of our students who graduated on this year. It is amazing to see the excitement, and this is it's important that we celebrate our students at each level to just encourage them to go a little further. So the Rams scholarship banquet was, although I was a little late, I am appreciative for the opportunity to have attended. Special thanks to Dr. Jarrett for making that happen. I certainly appreciate that. It is I can't stress enough to echo off what Ms. Stanford has said, that sometimes we have to solve problems and situations are going to occur. But to pause to celebrate and see what our students are doing and those that are focused and those that are achieving is to be celebrated. And I appreciate those in leadership with the Ram Banquet that make this possible for students to get that extra support to accomplish their dreams, their desires, and aspirations. So as I navigate through the community, I hear a lot of positive things in regards to our youth and opportunity. If you just pay attention to just the news, the opportunities that our students have. For an example, Mr. Jay Sandine was on the news talking about the opportunity that the kids have for ice hogs that would not otherwise have that experience. So when you look at the collaborative effort that our community is making, it is encouraging. Again, situations are going to come up and we're going to have problems, but I think that as we continue to engage with our community, we'll see change slowly taking place. To Dr. Antoine Reed, it is so important that we be able to hear our community. So that piece of listening, I'm getting really good feedback on that. The parents, and it's interesting, I'm going to share this brief story and I'm going to be done. I was at the YMCA just having a family moment, and I was stopped by a community member who was concerned about the alternative to school suspension that Washington Park have. So I said to the community member, there was a time that the district didn't partner with anyone where it relates to suspension. So I would consider that growth, and we have to learn to celebrate our district on the accomplishments and the efforts that they are putting forth. We talk a lot about school to prison pipeline, and that happens when you don't have a suspension, alternative to suspension program in place. So we will always have opportunity for growth, whether it's personal or in the organization. But I'm so appreciative. We want to get to the point that we're not suspending anyone. However, there's consequences with every action, and sometimes it results in a suspension. Should that happen, there is a safe place. It is not limited to a zip code, and they are there for our students. And they're there to assist and make sure that they stay on track with their homework and have an opportunity to refocus. So I say continue the work, continue to set goals and improve, and we'll definitely eventually see some very positive outcomes. Thank you.
Ms. McCall?
Thank you. First, I would like to just ask that we take a moment of silence to remember the lives of the 10-year-old student that was taken from us this past weekend, and also her 6-year-old sister whose life will be traumatized for the rest of her life. If we can take a moment of silence for that. Thank you. As a parent and as a community member, it was just plain horrific, and it has weighed heavily on my heart. So thank you for allowing me to have that moment of silence. Additionally, June was very busy. It was a very busy month. With graduations, I was just honored to be able to participate in everything that I was able to participate in, whether it be the graduations. I was not able to attend the Ram banquet, but as a former 10-year board member of the Rockford Association for Minority Management, I know the quality and caliber of students that come through those scholarship banquets every year. So I was able to actually interact with many of those students via the graduation and also via the senior celebrations that each building had and that they invited me to. I also would like to just mention the students that were able to receive funding from the Harkness Foundation. I was able to attend the Rockford Park District. I was able to attend their Harkness Foundation scholarship night, and I believe it was 4 or 5 of the Rockford Public Schools students who were able to walk away with computers as well as monetary scholarships on that night. Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, I'm a member of that sorority, and we also gave, I think it was 4 scholarships, 4 scholarships from the Pi Gamma Omega scholarship and the Oscar and Annie Blackwell scholarship that are housed through the Community Foundation of Northern Illinois. I was able to see several young ladies who were awarded that. I was seeing some of the same students at all of these events, and I would always tease them. I was like, okay, you're a repeat offender. Okay, got you. This is your 3rd time, seeing you. So it's really special to be able to interact with those students and let them know, the future looks very bright. Let's see, I think I missed one. I'm not going to belabor it, but just know that our students are out there and they're achieving, and we're right there behind them, giving them the high fives and the pats on the back as they are making their ways throughout their education. So thank you for Mr. Reed, Mr. Dotson Jr., excuse me, and all of the staff and the teachers and everything that put these events on, and also give these opportunities for us as board members to go and interact with the students. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Carpenter?
Thank you. I was able to, one of the other athletic events that was going on this month was the East Summer League boys basketball tournament, which I was able to go to a few games for that. And that was very exciting. I watched games with all 4 of our high schools, and Auburn won the varsity tournament, and they look pretty good. So I just wanted to point that out. They all look pretty good, but Auburn looks really good. Okay.
Anyone else?
I'm sorry, June, for a repeat, but I see that we're on to, we kind of bypassed Juneteenth, and that's. Oh, okay, I thought I was looking at the slide. That was another event that I attended, and I did not get a chance to make a comment on that. So in collaboration with Juneteenth, I had an opportunity to speak at the Black graduation, and that is just a time that, while celebrating Juneteenth and its purpose, that we have some reflection and encourage, since our students, our Black students, have been one that is identified as low performers or low academic achievement. It was a good opportunity to set aside time to recognize our Black students and their efforts, and that was all a part of Juneteenth. And it was just good to interact with, as you see, Coach Ike Johnson, who was one of the teachers that kept me on track when I was in high school. So I can never thank our teachers and administrators that were present when I was in high school, because of many of them has afforded me the opportunity in serving today. So that was another event that I attended, and it was lots of recognitions. Our teachers were recognized, and principals, and it was really good to see specific talent. So that was another event that I had opportunity to engage in. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, Ms.
One more. June was busy. I prefaced with that. I would also like to acknowledge the Fred Van Vliet Weekend, Family Foundation Weekend. I was able to participate with the sponsorship dinner that was held at the Embassy Suites. The Fred Van Vliet Family Foundation gave a generous sponsorship to the Wabongo Leadership Council and their efforts for their historically Black college tour. And so I was a chaperone on that tour, and it was very phenomenal with all of the students that we were engaging with. So I did want to, publicly thank the foundation again for that opportunity and investing in the students of Rockford Public School District 205. Thank you.
Okay, I have one thing. So mine is not a celebration, but Jen Lawrence and I were able to take a tour of Summit Academy recently, which was lovely and very much appreciative, very informational. I loved it. It was great. So obviously no students were there, but just learning about their program and kind of how therapeutic their response is and how well their students are doing was very much appreciated. So.
Anyone else? Okay, that concludes our.
Thank you, Mrs. Stanford. Mr. Carpenter will now lead the Performance and Monitoring Committee portion of the meeting.
Thank you. Tonight we have our semi-annual report on the spending plan for the district's use of the ESSER funding. That's the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. from the CARES funding, which is Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, funding through the American Rescue Plan. Dr. Greg Brown, Chief Financial Officer, will provide the board with an update. Dr. Brown, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. So this is our semi-annual report on all of the COVID relief money that the district's been awarded. And so you can see right here on the front page, before we jump into all the details, there's three sections there: the CARES Act, the ESSER 2, and ARP ESSER. Those were three separate buckets of money that the district received. And so with those buckets of money, the goal was really focused on a couple of big picture things, some of which we've talked about tonight, about growing community partnerships. That was a big focus with the COVID money. We'll see some of those details here coming up. Improving our facilities in IT and IS, that was really a goal to get equitable facilities across the entire district, which we are working towards right now and will have by summer of 2024. And then really trying to figure out ways to renew, support, and develop our staff, and we'll talk a little bit about that too. So the overall status report here is going to give you, basically money spent to date, and we're just going to go through each one of them individually. So the first one that you see there is the CARES Act. We got about $11.7 million of funding there. $67 million for that second bucket of money, which was ESSER 2, and then the big pot of money was $156 million, and that was the ARP ESSER. That was the last tranche of money that the government sent out. So the CARES Act was really designed to be spent for getting your schools safe and trying to get kids back in school right away in the spring of 2020. And you can see that the vast majority of that money was really spent on instructional type supplies, Chromebooks and iPads. We had to get the district up to 1-to-1. And so that was really the focus of that spending. And then really the second big bucket there was attendance, social work, and health services. That was to make sure that the buildings were going to be safe when the kids were actually able to come back. The second real big piece is that ESSER 2 that we mentioned, and you'll see that we've made good progress on this one. The numbers that you see, the amounts paid there, are as of May 31st of 2023. And I'll just highlight on that one the big spend on facilities. Actually, through June 30th, we're actually closer to $45 million there. So you're going to see that we're really going to accelerate the spending on this ESSER 2 grant all the way through the end of the summer, because this one actually closes out on November 30th of 2023. So we've got to get this money spent, and then we have a liquidation period after that. So the goal right now is to make sure that we get these buckets of money spent by September 30th of this year. So you can see the spending there. The vast majority of it is really in the facilities. The last pot of money is the ARP ESSER, and this one was a little bit different than all the other ones because this one had specific set-asides for academic purposes. And so a good chunk of the money, and you can see down there at the bottom with the little note, $36 million needs to be spent on learning loss. And so what are we actually spending that money on for learning loss? The vast majority of it is really going to be spent this coming school year when we extend the school day at those elementary buildings that chose to do that. So that's going to be the biggest spend as far as that goes. And most of that's going to be coming out of instruction. Some of that will come out of the attendance and social work as related services, improvement of instruction. You can see those asterisk line items right there. Those are all the things that make up this $36 million for the learning loss. And then the other real big improvement is facility improvements again, and that again is going towards really getting equity in all of our buildings as far as real good air quality and ventilation. On the construction on that one, we're actually up to about $35 million as far as the facility improvements go on that one. This one expires in September 30th of 2024. So we've still got about 14 months to be able to spend money on this one. And Mike assures me that the facility improvements are going to be done and that money will be spent. So we are not going to give any of this money back to the feds. So we will use this in our community for our students. So we're going to go into a little bit of detail on the ARP ESSER now on the required $36 million worth of spend. We talked a lot about this already, but you can see where the money is broken down to for the $36 million in spending. Again, like we talked about, the vast majority that's really going to come in this next school year when we get that extra period of time for the elementary students. So spending quite a bit of money on professional development. We're doing a lot this summer with our teachers, really getting them geared up to be ready to do that extended day in the fall, and then also just build their capacity. Closer look at the learning loss and some of the social emotional. These are the things that we've spent money on over the last couple of years to actually help the kids make up for some of that learning loss. Paper is an online platform that students have access to outside of the school day, so they can actually use this when they're at home with their school devices. Rosecrans is another big one that you've heard about. We just renewed that one for another year, and they're going to work on filling those positions for us. They're providing social emotional supports in the buildings. And then the Live, Learn, Play. This goes to the community partnerships that was on that second slide. You can see all the groups that we've been working with over the last year and a half or so to actually provide some of this extended learning time for our students and safe places for the kids to go. And so these next couple of slides really reflect all those community partnerships that are out there right now. And you can see there's a really diverse group of people that we've been working with in the community to try and get our kids exposure to some activities that are outside of the school day. And I won't read all these to you, but most of these you've probably seen coming through when Maureen has had her Live, Learn, Play items. So, some of these names you're very familiar with. Some people have had so much success, like Antoine Harris Group, that we've actually re-upped him, and he's actually got another program that he's going to be working on this year. So you'll see some of the ones that have had success. They've spent the original money, come back and reapplied and been awarded additional money as well. You can see this is the second part of the Antoine Harris Group right here. So those have been really the Live, Learn, Plays. This is kind of an older strategy. So if you were on the board way back when, you'll remember when we did the $50 gift cards to try and help kids get vaccinated. That has wrapped up now. So we actually had 6,384 students that actually got vaccinated with this incentive. So that did help with getting kids back in school. We were trying to get back to in-person learning as quickly as we could, and the vaccine gift card, I think, really did make a difference. As far as the air quality strategy, I'll punt on specific things to Mike in case you have questions, but that was just kind of the big general overview, as far as what we were doing, really just working to get, equitable air quality conditions in all of our buildings. You can see the schedule there. We're doing really, really well on the schedule, and we will have all the work done by the summer of 2024. You can see estimated project budgets for all the different components here on the facilities plan that we've been working on. Obviously, the vast majority is in construction. And then total cost to date, again, these are from May 31st, so we've actually spent considerably more money on these since, the May 31st date. So this gets into a little bit of our project bidding schedule. We really are there as far as all the bids goes and having awarded all the construction. So we did have a couple of things that we did get removed from Eisenhower Kennedy and the Marshalls. They actually had good air quality in those buildings, so we held on some of those to make sure that we got work done on the others. If we do have some money left over here at the end, we are going to look at doing some replacements, possibly in these buildings, of some of the existing equipment. Transportation was one that we've worked on there too. You can see, that we have started to provide some busing for elementary students who live within 1.5 miles. So that's not something that's reimbursable by the state. So when we do things like that, that comes out of all local dollars with no reimbursement to the state. We've also focused on trying to get more of the early childhood students picked up so they can attend on a regular basis as well. And with that, I'll turn it over for any questions.
Thank you. I did have a couple questions, I guess. Did you say that the ESSER 2 deadline was at November 30th of this year?
September 30th.
Oh, September 30th. Thank you.
Coming right up.
Okay, thank you. And I think you mentioned that there's a liquidation period after that.
There is.
Okay, can you explain what that means?
Sure. So basically we have to have all the costs obligated by September 30th, but then we have a period to wrap all the projects up and actually pay the bills. So we do have some period of time after September 30th to actually finalize the payments for all of the work that we have going on.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, was that November 2023? That's the date you have?
September 30th.
Okay.
September 30th is when we have to have everything obligated, and then we have a period of time after that to be able to finish paying the bills.
Okay. The reason I just go back to that, there was a November 2023 mentioned in there, and I was just wondering if that's the date that you have to have it all liquidated by.
That's the date we're shooting to have everything liquidated by. I think we've actually got 30 more days beyond that, but we're shooting to have everything all wrapped up by Thanksgiving of this year for ESSER 2.
Okay. I do have another question follow-up, and it's not to do with the ESSER funds, but with the Live, Learn, Play, those partnerships that we've established with those community partners, after the ESSER funds are done, is there a plan in place to keep some of those partnerships going?
That is a great question, and that is what we are really going to focus on this year, is because we really have to figure out what we've really gotten the bang for our buck on a lot of these projects. So it's not only the community partnerships, it's some of those other things too, like Paper.co, the Rosecrans partnership, because these have all been funded with one-time monies, and if these are things that we want to sustain, we're going to have to really tighten our belt to make sure we're just keeping the best of the best going for our students in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
President Pearson.
Thank you. In regards to the instructional piece for under the CARES, can you give me, and maybe Mr. Bartell can answer this, so are the students still allowed to have Chromebooks, and are they taking how we're utilizing the Chromebooks?
So I can answer this a little bit. Maybe Ms. Detman can hop in as well. But with Chromebooks, secondary students primarily 6 through 12 do take home Chromebooks. 2nd through 5th grade aren't doing that in every building. That's usually up to the principal in the building what they need for curriculum to take home to do homework. And then our students 1st grade and kindergarten use iPads, so those are typically not going home outside the classroom.
In terms of how they use them, in K-1-2, they have some of their software for Reading Horizons that they use. Sometimes they use ebooks like on Epic or math games. In grades 2 through 5, they use Formative, they use Seesaw to capture their work and start creating digital portfolios in many classrooms. But generally speaking, they don't leave the school. Generally speaking, they're assigned to a student, but they stay in the school because they don't do a lot of homework on a device. We really don't want them having more time on devices at a young age at home. In grades 6 through 12, Mr. Barthel was correct. That is a one-to-one take-home program, and students are more dependent on their Google Classroom to access their assignments on their devices.
Okay, thank you. For our students that say have a medical condition and is out of school, say, a week or two, how are we sending homework home with them, or they're logging in the Google Class link? How are we managing that piece?
Ms. Lawrence is coming up. I'll go ahead and start while she's coming up. It would depend on the length of time away and sort of what the teacher felt was the best package of materials for the student. So for extended stays, I'll pass it over to Ms. Lawrence. But for just a few days out of the classroom, generally, we probably wouldn't send a device home. We would rely more on paper pencil work because we want the student to be able to access their work without support if there's no one at home to support them.
That's a good question. So students, sorry, I'm sick. Students that are on a medical absence would be authorized through our health services team, and they would be provided a homebound tutoring authorization through them, and then we would determine what those supports would look like. So some students might be able to endure 5 hours of homework a day and some may not. So they're tailored to meet the needs of the student per the medical, the authorization by the physician. So they give us some information and then we build the plan from there. And then we determine when that student is able to come back, and then either they can come back full day if they're ready, or that we transition them back part-time until they're back full day.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. I have another question in regards to the funding, the special funding. So students, monies that we have to use and that is set aside for instructional or learning loss, can those monies be used for one-on-one tutoring or not?
If it extends the school day, yes, there is a portion of the funding. There are multiple sort of buckets that we pull from that have different limitations. There are portions of the funding that are allowed for tutoring. One-to-one is great if it extends the time of the school day for the student. So for example, we have our relationship with paper.co. That's a 24/7 virtual tutoring option, and that is one-to-one. So a student is working on their homework or they're studying for a test and they're at home, they can log on and have a chat right away with a content specialist who will work them through how to solve their problems that they're struggling with. So that is one way that we used the ARP ESSER dollars for one-to-one tutoring.
Thank you. And are you able to tell much engagement? Are students actually utilizing that? And if so, do you have roughly a percentage?
I don't have a percentage, but I do have some updated data from these slides, even more updated. We've had 9,000 total activities, 6,000 live help sessions, 1,916 review center submissions, 1,076 paper math submissions, and so yes, it's being used, but there are some schools that are hotter than others. So what we've been trying to do is partner with the principal and really show how this can support students in staying on track in their class. So they could even be in class and have a question and open up a chat and get some help right away. Or they could be at lunch or before school or after school or on the bus. And so we've been trying to sort of make individual relationships with schools, and the places where we've made that connection and tied it to the goal of on track, we're seeing really high usage. We saw things really go up at RISA and at Jefferson because of that, and our super user still is Thurgood Marshall Middle.
Do we have any strategies in place to get other schools and students on board with the utilization?
Yes, we grew double when we started that strategy in February and March of this year. So we have a monthly meeting with our partners at Paper, and we're going to plan Paper pep rallies at each of the schools that haven't quite picked this up yet, because even though our usage is sort of inconsistent across the district, I know that there really is a need, and it's really about just ensuring that we're communicating directly with families too, so that their parents know that when they have math homework, there is someone that can help them. And what's beautiful about Paper, if I can just make a plug, pardon me, Dr. Brown, what's beautiful about Paper is they have content experts in any subject area, and they also have both English and Spanish, which is rare. And they they don't give students the answer. They work through using a Socratic method to help the students better understand the material. I've read through hundreds of transcripts of these chats, and there are some tutors that have hung on with students from like midnight to 2 a.m. the day before a test, and the student leaves saying, like, I get it now, I'm comfortable, I'm ready to take my test in the morning. So we are going to continue that strategy school by school, connected to goals, have paper pep rallies in the fall, and hope to see our usage continue to increase. And then from there, we hope that families and schools will find value in it, and we'll be able to decide whether this becomes something that we just provide or this is something that we add for supplemental funding at the building's discretion.
Thank you. Remind us what is made available for the high schoolers.
For paper, they can get tutoring in any course that they take here locally in both English and Spanish. It's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they are connected via chat with a tutor within about 15 to 30 seconds.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question regarding the paper. So how is this information being distributed to parents? Is it just strictly the students know, hey, we have paper, if you need help, contact us? Like, how are the parents being informed of it? It seems like it's a good tool, but you need to have parents involved as well. So what's the strategy for that?
Well, we started with sort of a more of a centralized strategy, and so if you go back and kind of look on our social media, we partnered with our communications department, and we had several pushes out on our district Facebook page with sort of tutorials for parents in both English and Spanish, and how to get connected. We followed that up with paper flyers in the school, and then also Peach Jar, and then after about 3 weeks, we did that push again. Waited a few more weeks, did that push again. Then we pulled in community partners like the Boys and Girls Club, I think Northwest Community Center, probably the YMCA. We pulled them in and showed the product to them and gave them resources as well for connection. And then we started a school-by-school push to have principals and teachers access the resources as well and share them out in their Google Classroom as well.
Okay, so the parents have access to the ability to access the tutors as well, or like what's the process? So I'm a third grader and I need help with fractions. I don't want to ask my mom or whatever. Mm-hmm. What's the process if I'm a parent and I know my student is struggling, so to say?
Yep.
And I'm thinking like, okay, all I know is Khan Academy. So what's this paper stuff?
And Khan Academy is great too, especially if you know what your student is struggling with. Mm-hmm. But if you need in the moment support to help teach them, a parent can sit side by side with their student and they can actually log on their phone. They don't have to have a district device in order to do this. Okay. But as we approach a new school year again, we'll be refreshing that communication plan. We meet in August with our partners to come up with our strategy for the start of school.
Just maybe a suggestion, like maybe put in the registration packets or something.
It's all online now. Well, for elementary, not for secondary. But yes, it's been the biggest struggle. It truly is making sure that people know that it exists in the moment when they need it. Because I might have sent it out 2 weeks ago, but they didn't need it then, and now tonight I need it. How do I find it?
I had no clue when I'm sitting here, struggling through Khan Academy trying to remember the Pythagorean theorem.
Or your username and password. That's always mine.
Exactly. Yeah. So, okay, I would just like to see a little, I don't know.
Yeah, I appreciate the feedback, and that'll be our focus in August. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know the clock is ticking. However, my memory is jogged. So one of the concerns that a principal shared with me during a school visit is a parent was very frustrated and asked the principal to stop sending written material home because they couldn't read. So there was a literacy issue there. So needless to say, the parent can't help the student with their homework. So how can we simplify even the electronic piece? I understand we cannot solve every problem, but nonetheless, we're faced with it every day. So are there any alternatives in services?
Paper provides multimodal communication, so there's also instructional videos that go out in both English and Spanish as well, and we've pushed those out through our social media channels, but again, it's knowing it in the moment when you need it and where to access it. So I think that's really the problem that we probably need to put our focus on as we start the beginning of another school year. But yes, they have highly visual instructions, and then they also have corresponding videos. So you don't necessarily have to be able to comprehend everything that's on the page in order to get your child connected.
Thank you. My next question, so there's every organization that was awarded funds for their whatever program they had to assist with learning loss or any activities. Is there any window of extension for organizations to apply for financial support with these funds?
I believe there is, but I mean, Antoine Harris Group has come back, for a second go around because there was funding available. Now, I don't know if all of it's been committed or not at this point.
I think that we are doing sort of a end of summer roundup against each bucket to see what we have remaining, because not all of these were fully spent.
Right.
So I don't think we know that yet. I think our goal is August 31st.
Yeah, we should know. A lot of these are running this summer too, and so we really need to see where they end up to know whether we're going to have anything left.
Thank you. My last question is, if parents are interested in addressing their literacy, can any of these funds be used to assist families with adult literacy?
For adult literacy, no. These are for K-12 students.
Okay, so none of the funding that we received can be used for families with, okay.
Not out of this program. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Bennett, do you have a question?
I have two statements. For these partners that we have, in December, one of the components of internal external stakeholders will be Maureen Kirschman presenting out on an update. So like was mentioned earlier, which ones were successful, which ones were not. So this would be in December in preparation for principals creating their budget. So if principals should choose to institutionalize some of these or partner on their own with their own funding, or should that be something the district decides, whatever comes from that, but that would be in December. So in plenty of time in preparation, just as a FYI for everyone. And then also in regards to families and literacy, there are multiple organizations in town that do free literacy. So Old Literacy Council, which is now a part of the Y, for example, does free classes for families. So I don't know if there's a way that we could get that out to family members, but that's a free resource, so it wouldn't require us paying funding for that. It's already a service, so just FYI.
Okay, so thank you, Mrs. Bennett, for bringing that up. So I did have a parent that reached out to the Y. Actually, it was the YW. They then referred them to a GED program. But literacy issue, they wouldn't qualify for a GED program. So this is a little off topic, so we'll circle back around and we'll find some external resources to help our families. Thank you.
I had a couple other questions about the other learning loss programs, there was the slide with oh yeah, so can we get a brief we talked about Paper.co and Rosecrans. Can we get a brief description on the other three, please?
Yes, we can. Dial Care is similar to Paper.co. That's made available to our students who are 12 years of age and older, and that provides virtual counseling services for them from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. We anticipated higher usage of this and have not seen very high usage to date. Again, we'll have sort of a reboot on our communications plan in August with this. But in terms of Dial Care, we have posters hanging in the schools, posters hanging in the bathrooms, et cetera. So this is meant to be a direct-to-student service. Rosecrans, you know about. Star 360 or Renaissance Learning is the platform that we use to support Tier 2 academic intervention, and it's the way that we monitor learning in our MTSS system for both reading and for math. We have licenses for about 25% of our population, and then also our special ed team uses it to progress monitor IEP goals. And then Panorama Education has become just a way that we do things, which is really exciting. Panorama Education is our early warning system, and the focus is on behavior, grades, attendance, and then our SEL or social emotional learning survey. We give an SEL survey 3 times a year and analyze those results for everything from self-efficacy to student belonging, but more importantly, on a regular basis, we're using it to identify students who start slipping before they have already slipped. So we're looking for students who are moving from green to yellow in any one of those indicators, and then assigning interventions for them in the platform and monitoring their progress.
Thank you. Did anyone else have any other questions or comments about?
I'm so sorry. So students that have suffered learning loss because of their behavior, can any of these funds be used for organizations to come in to address their behavior, to support them, that will ultimately support them academically?
A key piece to answering that question is truly understanding what kind of program we're talking about, because again, these dollars are truly meant to extend time for learning, not supplant time in the school day for learning. So in order to clearly answer that question, I would need to look at a project proposal to know exactly what was being proposed. Then we could determine if it fit the criteria or didn't. But what's also important to remember, and this is probably too much, but there is a certain threshold for each allowable aspect of our funding. So there might be only 10% maximum that we could put in one bucket or 15 in another. So it's a little bit more nuanced and complex than just yes or no.
Thank you.
I do have one more. I do just have one follow-up question to the Star 360. And later on in the packet, there's an item regarding power schools. Is that Star 360 similar to power schools?
No, Star 360 and Power School are 2 different entities, 2 different platforms.
Do they do the same thing?
They do not. Power School is more of a student information system, and I think what's on the agenda tonight is for special education, and Star 360 is academic progress monitoring.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Ms. McCall.
Yes, I just have one other question. So this is a review of the information or the tools that have been utilized to date, right? So I have become aware of maybe it's a proposal I think that's coming through the Healing Network Center. Let me see. The Healing Center framework? Yes. So I'm going to have some questions about that and the progress going towards making this be implemented into the schools. So let me know what you know.
now. Yes, so the Healing Centered Framework is it's an initiative being explored right now through the Alignment Rockford A teams that are devoted to trauma and social emotional support in our community. There's been an exploratory team that has representatives from RPS, including Ms. Lawrence, Dr. Reed, Ms. Hughes from our DEI department, as well as Amy Gannon, who's our executive director of MTSS. They've partnered with our partners from the City of Rockford Mayor's Office on Domestic Violence and the Health Department as well. The first thing they did was do an exploratory, is there a need in our community for more, and do we have a place to provide that solution? They've identified that yes, they do, and they've identified that the Healing Centered Framework from Chicago is of interest to them, and so what they're looking at right now is they're developing a tactical plan under the Alignment Rockford process to identify 3 to 5 schools where we could begin a pilot project. The Alignment Rockford process is that you identify first an invitation to participate, a tactical plan, and then over time you identify the opportunity to scale up and institutionalize that plan. So they are very much at the tender beginnings of that planning, but the exploration has just completed. Now they'll be developing their invitation to participate and project proposal.
Also, we do have several consent agenda items on the performance and monitoring committee. Does anyone have any questions about those?
I do.
Ms. Haley?
So one of the consent agenda items is the safe and civil schools. Now, as I was reading through that one, let me just get it pulled up if you don't, bear with me a minute. Now, we're doing the safe and civil schools because the state has classified those 3 schools, Constant Lane, McIntosh, and Lewis Lemon, as now comprehensive, and they're in the bottom 5% of. Is that the bottom 5% of the state or the district?
Those are 3 schools that are performing in the bottom 5% of the state.
Okay.
And those are not necessarily the only schools in the district. We didn't identify those schools just because of their status as comprehensive designation. We used a variety of factors that we are looking at, and also in particular the readiness and willingness of the administrators and their staff to engage in the training.
Now, without safe and civil schools, the reason we're implementing this is for the purpose of not going into the being identified as intensive by the state.
We certainly do not want to be classified as comprehensive in these schools or any other schools in our district, but the reason that we're doing this program, it's really, Safe and Civil Schools is the name of the organization. The program that's being implemented is CHAMPS. And the point of CHAMPS is to maximize instructional time during the school day through having effective classroom routines. So CHAMPS is actually an acronym. C stands for conversation, H stands for help, A stands for activity, M stands for movement, and P stands for participation. And so teachers through this program and other staff are very explicit with the routines that they have in the classroom as they have transitions, so that students understand how they should be engaging in the classroom to maximize that instructional time and minimize transition or disruption or just downtime.
As I was reading through that, it mentioned something about stipulations from the state. Have we gotten any stipulations from the state, or if we do, what would that look like, maybe?
So we actually, in our cabinet meeting this coming Monday, will have a meeting with 2 of the Illinois State Board of Education people who oversee oversee accountability and compliance for the schools in Rockford Public Schools. I'm not sure what information they'll be able to share with us at that time for what has changed for next year. I do know, as an example though, last year we did not receive our funding from the state to implement anything until January.
Okay. I think I have one other question here. Now, with these schools, it's indicated that the staff, the reason why they're performing in the bottom 5% is, one of the reasons is staff turnover. Do we know why that is? Why is such high staff turnover at these particular schools, or is that something that's happening not only at these 3 schools, but maybe more?
I wouldn't say it was just these 3 schools. I would say the general response is these are challenging schools. And that's why you would see more staff turnover. When you look at our strategic budgeting formula and you look at how we have an equity portion of dollars that are distributed to schools, the manner in which those equity dollars are distributed, schools that have the more challenging schools that maybe have more turnover, have younger, less veteran staff, actually get more dollars under the way that we set up our strategic budgeting formula. So that's one way that we try and address it holistically as a district.
And I do appreciate the fact that the district is actually addressing those with the extra funding for those schools. And, you know, we've all been in school. When the substitute teachers comes in, that's when the class at room acts up. And I just hope we can find a way to retain staff at these schools. And again, I know that we're putting money towards that, but I hope that something sticks, that we could improve the education and the environment for those students.
I have a question too.
Ms. McCall.
So is there a plan for this program, the CHAMPS, to be implemented at other buildings beyond these 3?
Yes. Within the schools team budget, there is a total of $150,000 that have been earmarked for the CHAMPS programming. And we would like first to see this third contract that's going before you all tonight. This is the meat and potatoes of the CHAMPS programming. So back in April, the school leadership team got trained on the program. What the second contract was, all staff being trained in the program, fidelity to the program. Are we actually doing it? And importantly, does it make a difference? Based off of the feedback that we get from them coming in over the course of the year in these 3 visits, that'll allow us to know, is this something that is getting a return for us that we do want to scale up, and we do have dollars earmarked for that expansion.
Okay, so after a year of monitoring, if it's deemed something that is worthy of being launched at any school, the buildings have that opportunity to launch it if they so choose. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and I would argue we wouldn't necessarily have to wait a year.
Okay.
Depending, if we see in October dramatic changes in these 3 schools, and we have other schools where we see that there's an exhibited need, we don't have to wait. The dollars are earmarked in my department for that.
Okay, so if there's a need, say a teacher sees a need and they are familiar with this program, and they take it to their building principal. If the principal agrees, then it'll be able to something that can be implemented as soon as possible. Is that what you're saying?
We would probably follow the same trajectory that we did with these 3 schools. We wouldn't immediately start to try implementing in the classroom. We'd first want to make sure that the school leadership is on board and has been trained, then all the staff, and then full implementation in the school.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure that that's communicated out, and so the teachers feel empowered about a program or something that can assist them in managing challenging classrooms. So just make sure that it's communicated out to them, and that they understand that it's something that, if deemed appropriate, could be utilized as necessary. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I do have one other question regarding the return on investment. As far as the targets are concerned, will that be established, as far as, what progress is this program making? Is that established by the administration, or is that established separately but in each school, or is it like a blanket target for all three schools?
Both. I would say, if you look at the research that was shared in the update, it does show that there's some pretty basic metrics that can be used to evaluate the effectiveness of the program. So you would want to see a drop in behavior referrals, a drop in exclusionary out of school or even in school suspension. You would see a reduction in chronic absenteeism and increase in attendance. And then a lag indicator would be ultimately higher student academic performance. So that's, broadly speaking, what we would be measuring as a district across these three schools. However, what could happen at an individual school is that you could have the leadership team, as they're going through and monitoring, not waiting for these three visits. They're monitoring maybe on a weekly basis, doing spot checks in classrooms to see if they have fidelity. They could potentially have like a walkthrough form or like a checklist for the things they're looking for as it relates to the CHAMPS acronym, conversation or help or activity. So that's why I say both. It could be both at the district level, but we could see it at a more granular level at the schools.
Okay, and when those targets or those when those targets are set, will we be able to, as a board, be able to know up front what we're trying to achieve? And the reason I ask that is because I've seen organizations where they've had a student, or they've had very incremental, just small changes, and they call that change. As a board, I would like to see what those targets are and how we're progressing toward those.
We could share those targets with you well in advance of the school year and implementation starting. I would want to coordinate with the program for when they're coming in to see what are they actually looking for. I can't speak offhand what they're looking for on these 3 days that they're coming in, but what I would want to be able to share regularly in board updates with you all would be based off of what they're looking for.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So the concern that I have, did I understand you correctly, there's 3 contracts with Safe and Civil School?
We have a phase 1, 2, and 3, and the one before everyone tonight is phase 3.
So this is my concern, with all due respect. I understand the acronym for CHAMPS. And what really concerns me is I haven't heard much about the other contributing factors. So whether it's the shortage of teachers or attendance from either students or the teachers, and the information that in regards to how successful Safe and Civil Schools organization have been with in regards to the demographics that meet ours. I'm still not real impressed with that. I'm also concerned that, and it was just recently, not to blindside anyone, but a teacher shared with me that the school that she teaches, the supervisor had not been present in the school for 2 years. And we have a responsibility to hold RPS 205 accountable for the success of our students, and utilizing those in place to assist in that. So that concerns me, that someone is absent. I mean, literally have not been in a school in 2 years. Secondly, I visited a school and I walked into a classroom that was in total control. And CHAMPS is really geared, from my understanding, to address behavior and practices to position our students for learning. Why isn't that something that our district could not provide our schools? Why are we looking outside of our district as opposed to, if it can happen in one classroom, it can happen in all of them? So my concern is that we're underutilizing who we have that can contribute to what we are trying to accomplish through CHAMPS. So what are the roles for the school supervisors? Who's responsible currently for training? And how much of this will really be in person, or say via Zoom, or are the teachers watching a video? Like, I just don't feel like, and there was information in the update. I understand all of that. But it really concerns me that we have staff in place to contribute to the success of our schools. So how are the supervisors being used? How are the managers being used? What are their roles? And so do we reach out for every training? What expectation, or what can we expect our district to do for our students where it relates to training teachers to be successful in their classroom? And those of our administration who is directly responsible for our schools, what does that look like? What is really going on? Because we haven't been successful in addressing the attendance issue, and this training comes in, 25% of the students aren't there, or 5% of the teachers aren't there. How effective do we really think CHAMPS is going to be in these schools? Yeah, I'm asking a question.
I don't believe I would be able to answer all of that tonight, but I'd be happy to follow up. A couple of items that I can share directly with you. One, for the schools team, the school supervisors, they're in every single one of their schools a minimum of twice a month. It's typically more 3 to 4 times a month that they're in their schools. I could also say, when it comes to leveraging the high-capacity teachers that we have within our district, just in June, we hosted a school improvement workshop at the RVC Career and Technical Center. And when we had the school improvement workshop, we brought together not just our administrators, but our entire school leadership teams for all of our schools, so that we had multiple REA members who are participating side by side with their school administrators in content that was delivered from the schools team and many other coordinated departments within the district. We had 5 deliverables, or 5 outcomes, that we wanted the schools to engage in during these school improvement workshops. I would be happy to share the feedback that we got from the survey from these school improvement workshops, where the teachers and leadership came together with central office. We've got certainly areas for improvement from these school improvement workshops. overall, we got resoundingly positive feedback, and I'd be happy to share that with you so that you can see, one, what we're doing as a district in-house for a lot of this work, but also how we're leveraging our highest capacity teaching staff.
Thank you, Mr. Gallagher. I certainly appreciate that. So for the 3 schools that have been mentioned to implement CHAMPS, can you explain a previous training that these schools had that kind of mirrored CHAMPS? Because I'm getting feedback that CHAMPS is not something new, that they've had training like this. It is the accountability piece and the consistency that is missed. So I definitely want to support our schools and make sure that they have what they need. But I also want to make sure that all hands are on deck and we're doing what we need to do to address all the contributing factors. Because we know that CHAMPS is just one piece of it. And if those other items are not addressed, then we're back at square one.
Moving forward, one of the things I think we can do, Board President Pearson, and I'm going to offer this to the entire board, is I think one of the things that's going to be really crucial for community partners, board members, and district office to come together and spend time touring our schools. And so one of the things we did, we had a lot of disconnect with our partners in the city of Rockford in terms of having individuals in our school with lived experience that were committed to supporting our students with social emotional needs. And one of the best things we did was we were able to invest some time in having our schools team and our principals walk through. And not only did we tour the school, but we actually looked at the budget, the $1 million+ of differential resources, and really had a conversation as we walked and talked about what those dollars were going to. And what we found is after 4 years of me and others telling people in our community that we're investing more dollars in the schools, when they actually could see a person or see a calm classroom or see the investment in person, I think that's important. So what I'm going to offer to you and to our board and certainly community partners as well throughout the course of the school year is I think what we really need to do is spend some time seeing how these strategies are being implemented. So what would be different about a school tour moving forward is you'd walk in, one side of the paper, hand somebody a sheet, and you'll be able to see what the plan of attack is, the budget, and see those differential dollars and see what the school is spending the money on. On the back side, you'll be able to see the school improvement plan and what the strategies are in place. And then I think in a much more focused way, we can learn together and see what's going on. So I think the best thing for us to do is when we bring students back into the school year is I'm going to be happy to partner with each and every one of the board members to schedule those tours. Some of them would be with me. Some of them may be with other members of our team, always with the principal. And I think the best way to do it is to see it together. So I think at this point in July, it's probably harder to get to the bottom of issues like this. I think where we can probably have the richest conversation moving forward will be having a very open and transparent opportunity to have conversations as we see the same things together in the schools. You brought up a really important point about seeing what one classroom looked like that really was getting it right and talking about how others could be learning from a teacher in one of our schools. I think those are the kinds of takeaways that can come no matter what challenges a school faces. There are always bright spots. There are always good investments that are being made. And so I think in addition to our conversations on the board floor, I'm going to be really excited to invite each and every one of you to spend time touring the schools with me and other members of our team and learning together. And if we have strategies that aren't functioning to the way they're drawn up on a piece of paper, those are the kinds of follow-up conversations supervisors can have on the back end. But I think we can go there not to tell the principals what to do because they're the experts in their schools, but rather for all of us to come in and learn about how we can be better supporters at the district level. So I really appreciate your passion on this issue and want to invite you and the entire board to be a part of visiting as often as possible possible and as often as you'd like to during the school year. I think principals love knowing that we're there to learn and they're often very proud of the things that they're accomplishing in their buildings.
Thank you, Dr. Jarrett. I'm never interested in telling the principal how to run their school. What I will say is, for an example, I had an opportunity to tour Ellis, but that's just one of the schools, and I'm not sure that Ellis suffers with short staffing or the level of behavior issues that perhaps some of the other schools. So to my point, it is not that I am completely against CHAMPS. My concern is we can bring in all the programs and all the training, but if we don't have bodies in the school, and CHAMPS doesn't necessarily agree with additional bodies, but if we don't have that component filled with, CHAMPS is not going to be as effective as we desire. That is all I'm saying. So I commend our school administrators for what they do, but I'm unapologetic about making sure that those who are supposed to be in place are in place and are doing what they are supposed to be doing for the betterment of our students. Thank you.
100%.
I know our committee's time is up, but could I steal some time from someone?
Sure.
I just kind of wanted to know more about the group, that's Group Trail. It is the work-based learning experience. Says that it's a software. I think it's going to track those experiences. And thank you. If you could just talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Good afternoon. I'm Bridget French. Group Trail is a platform that has been customized for us so that we can manage all of our community volunteers and community contacts, so that when a teacher or an administrator has a need at a building, say I need a guest speaker that is fluent in legalese, they can type in that topic and find community partners that are available to do that for them.
Okay, as I was reading through it, but it's also like work-based learning where students can connect with community members or employers in the community to do some hands-on or tour.
So students don't have access to the platform. It is our internal staff that are using the platform to manage work-based learning experiences, so that it will track the number of work-based learning experiences that our students have. So we can essentially import a student roster into the platform, and we could say these students went on a job shadow to Rockford Toolcraft, and then that connects to our student information system, and that data gets pulled on an annual basis if we want to know how many students had a variety of work-based learning experiences throughout the year. That platform helps connect to our eSchool, PowerSchool, and then we can pull that data easily. Whereas in the past, our academy coaches were actually tracking that by hand using Excel. So obviously there's some data integrity issues with that, and now we have a more systematic approach to managing those numbers.
Thank you for that clarification, because I was way off base.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Thank you.
I have two questions if I'm okay. Yep. For letter U, the panorama addendum, is there anybody that can answer a question? It's okay. If not, I can email Amy again, and if not.
I believe Heidi could when she returns.
Okay, no problem. I'll follow up on that. And then is there anybody, maybe Jennifer, that can answer about letter Y, Star Renaissance at Juvenile Detention Center? Or is that also Heidi, maybe? Oh, okay.
Good evening. I'm Tammy Shipper. There we go. I'm I'm Tammy Shippert. I'm the executive principal of Adaptive Learning, and I can answer any questions you have about JDC and Renaissance.
Yeah, so in here it talks about, one question I do have, so do individuals who work at the JDC, are they able to utilize Panorama for the students at JDC?
So our students that are at JDC, I can't give you specifics about the Panorama and the students at JDC, but if the students were in the Rockford School District, then we would have them in Panorama.
Correct. So then if I'm a student and I was at RPS and then I go to JDC, can JDC see my interventions, my classwork?
The teachers, yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes. I'm sorry. Yes, the teachers would have access.
Okay. So then of course it just exited out. For this item, the staff that use this would only be teachers that are utilizing this, is that correct?
For the Star Renaissance?
Yes.
That is actually a way that we can progress monitor our students, and it's for math and literacy. So we'll be able to see where the students are and then provide them with interventions to help them grow to be prepared to go back into our school system.
Okay, and when you say we, you're talking about teachers that...
Correct. It's the Rockford School District teachers. We have 3 teachers that are out there.
Okay. And then is this... the software is only academic based, so this wouldn't have anything to do with like the YSN position to work with? Okay.
No, it's specifically for the teachers to work with the students and know what the students need in terms of interventions.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excuse me, typically how long does it take for a student to do their educational path just transition without any interruptions, or do we have any issues with attendance with our teachers there? Can you just kind of give me what a day-to-day look like for our students that's in JDC?
So students attend the classrooms at JDC, and it's kind of like a reward for our students. They want to come to class, and then our teachers are in contact with the students' teachers at the home schools, and so they're able to provide them with the classwork that their peers are doing in their classrooms.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Could I just ask one quick question? I'm sorry, thanks. You mentioned the difference between RPS students there and what about students from other districts? Do the Rockford teachers teach them there?
Yes, what they do is they contact their home high school or their home schools, whether it's middle school or high school, and they try to get work from those students or for those students so that our teachers can continue to work with them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one other thing, not for you. And this has to do with the Agape Therapies, V, and Healthcare Staffing Professionals, W. And I don't expect you to have an answer right now, and I guess I will. Oh, it's you that would, okay. So basically, I don't necessarily really have a question about the contracting out for these services, because my question is that our contracting out for these services is costing the district about $1.8 million. And I'm just kind of curious, if we were able to staff, and I know that we are having a difficult time finding people to staff our positions for psychologists and speech and language therapists, if we were able to staff those positions, I'm just kind of curious, and I don't expect you to have an answer right now, what the difference would be in what we're paying out for those services.
I would have to take a look and get those numbers back to you. Typically, we do pay a little bit more of a premium for the contracted personnel compared to staff who are at RPS.
And I'm sure you do. And I just want to kind of see the difference. And hopefully, we could, do a huge push to try to staff our own, Just want to know.
Yes, ma'am. I get that for you.
I think that concludes the business of the Performance Monitoring Committee tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter, and thank you all for being so patient. I think we can make up the time. And now we will have Ms. McCall, who will now lead the Planning and Development Committee portion of the meeting.
Thank you, Madam President. Before you, we have under Section 8A is a RFQ 23-56 Planning Consulting Facilities Master Plan. The district completed a successful 10-year facilities master plan in 2022. To ensure lasting value to the community, teachers, and students, the district would like to embark on a new 5-year facilities master plan to examine the sustainability, suitability, and education readiness of our facilities through a data-driven process to improve equitable access and efficiencies. I will turn the meeting over to Michael Phillips, the Chief Operations Officer, to discuss the RFQ 23-56 Planning Consulting Facilities Master Plan.
Good evening, everybody. So in April, we advertised a request for qualifications to solicit responses for a planning consultant to assist us in developing a 5-year facilities master plan. From that response, we received 5 responses: Cooperative Strategies, Corrigan Clark, Cunningham with Larson and Darby Group, DLR Group, and OPN. I established a cross-departmental team to review the RFQ responses and to identify 2 to 3 firms to interview. The team included Anita Schauer, our capital programs architect, Blake Hand, ED of schools in our Southwest Quadrant, Bridget French, our ED of career and college readiness, Dane Youngblood, Director of Purchasing, Dawn Williamson, our Director of Athletics Activities and Program Development, Greg Brown, CFO, and lastly, Scott Jensen, our Director of Design and Construction. Cunningham with Larson and Darby Group and DLR Group were the firms selected for interviews. The interview team unanimously selected DLR Group because of their planning approach, which is focused on equity and student success, their depth of knowledge in K-12 master planning, and their successful completion of master plans with school districts of similar size and demographics, such as U46 in Elgin. The planning process will consist of 6 phases. Phase 1 will be a deeper understanding, which is a review of our district information that we've provided throughout the process, as well as looking at building and space comparison and analysis. Phase 2 will be a discover and explore, which will include teacher surveys, a day in the life of a student, where our team is following around different students across the district, and community surveys. Phase 3 is an alignment of space, which is basically our educational program meetings with our EC, elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, special programs, athletics, and fine arts, to name a few. Phase 4 will be to conceptualize, which is creating our models, our scenarios, and starting to cost out what those models will be. Phase 5 is game planning, which includes phasing scenarios and then refining our costs and developing that final board presentation. And lastly, phase 6 is our adoption and implementation phase. Throughout the planning process, there will be 5 main stakeholder groups. The first will be our steering committee. This group will be empowered to help make decisions and provide input to our architects and engineering firms. The team will consist of 1 to 2 board members, 4 to 5 community members, the superintendent, members of the superintendent's cabinet, REA representation, and we'd like to have 2 high school students as part of that committee. Next group is our administrative core committee. This group will make decisions on process and schedule. This will include the superintendent and members of the cabinet, which would include curriculum, IT, finance, operations, and the schools team. And we'd also want to have 2 to 3 key teacher leaders from across the district. Next would be our facilities and operations, which will include IT and security. primary users, which will be our building administrators, teachers, and students, and lastly, community members. Dr. Brown and I negotiated a lump sum fee with DLR Group for $299,630 with reimbursable expenses of $19,186 for a total estimated cost of $318,816. We'd like to carry a contingency of $29,000 for additional stakeholder meetings or site visits as we work through the process if we deem those necessary. The cost of the master plan is more than what we expected and more than what we had communicated in past presentations. Over the past 10 years, the process has evolved with an emphasis on aligning buildings and spaces to our students' educational needs with a focus on equitable access and student success. So we really feel that this is an investment that will pay us dividends and help us really position ourselves over the next 5 years and farther as we work through this plan. So I'll take any questions.
Are there any questions or discussions on the RFQ 2356 Planning Consulting Facilities Master Plan? Okay, thank you. This will return to the July 18th, 2023 board for a vote. Item B is a MOU with the Black Hawk Technical College. We have a new pathway in the Service Academy called Hospitality. The first course is Introduction to Hospitality. The second course is the sequence is Food Service. The third course in the sequence is Nutrition. The second and third courses in the three-course sequence are going to be offered to students as a dual credit with Black Hawk Technical College. In order to offer a dual credit, we must sign a MOU with BTC. Only food science is mentioned in the MOU because we will not offer nutrition until fiscal year 25. I will now turn the meeting over to Bridget French, the Executive Director of Career and College.
Thank you, Ms. McCall. The Post-Secondary Workforce Readiness Act passed in 2017 requires us to contact Rock Valley College if we want to partner with another post-secondary institution outside of our regional. And we have done that. They do not offer these courses, and they do not have plans to offer these courses. So that's why we're partnering with Black Hawk Tech. Are there any questions?
Mr. Carpenter?
Will that be available to, that's part of the academy, so it'll be available to students at all high schools?
Yes, that is correct. It will be housed at East High School because of the constraint on facilities that we currently have, but all 3 high schools will travel to East at some point during the day to take the class and then return to their home high school at the end of the course.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mrs. Haley? Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Was this a program that was considered for the, gosh, I forgot the name of the new center out by Jefferson High School.
Center.
Yes, but I know it's a different name now. Was this considered, is this
that is absolutely in our future plans.
Okay.
However, my understanding from Mr. Phillips is that that will not be ready for a couple years, so we need an interim plan to be able to offer this to students.
Okay, so this will start in the fall?
It will start in the fall, yes. And so the course is double block, so it's 2 class periods, which allows students time to travel to East, take the class, travel back.
Madam President.
Thank you. You actually just answered my question. I was a little concerned about the block of time in terms of transportation and getting to their next class. So this is a part of Black Hawk, correct?
So dual credit courses courses are taught by our instructors but use the curriculum of the college. And that's why we're able to offer college credit for the course, because it's actually the college's curriculum. So we are required to use their textbooks, their online materials, their curriculum, but it's our teachers teaching our students.
Okay, and the teachers, will we be hiring teachers? Are the teachers hired, and are they local?
We did hire a teacher it is one teacher who will teach all the sections of the course at East. He has experience in the restaurant industry, so we are able to get him career and technical education certified in order to be able to teach the course. So if you have 8,000 hours or 2,000 hours in a bachelor's degree, you can get CTE certified as long as you have that corresponding experience. And then typically what our department does is work with them to ensure they have classroom management skills and those types of things that maybe coming in from industry a teacher might not have. But we thought that in this case, food science, it was important to have someone that has actually been a chef and a cook in the community. So,
thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mrs. French.
Thank you.
This will return to the July 18, 2023 board for a vote. Sorry. Item C, the FY24 draft budget update. So next we will have Dr. Greg Brown, Chief Financial Officer, will give an update on the FY24 draft budget.
Okay, I promise this will not take as long as the ESSER update.
Okay, you have 2 minutes.
I know there's a lot of numbers on a page here, and this is really the first step for not only this meeting, but the next two meetings in August and September as we actually get ready to approve the budget. So this is actually a draft of what the budget's going to look like. Next meeting at the tentative budget, you're actually going to see the official budget document, which is about 50-some pages long and has way more numbers than this even has. But really what to focus on tonight is to look at the upper section of that where it talks about the operating funds, which are, those first 6 line items up there. And if you just focus on the total operating funds line item and then go all the way over to the right-hand side where it says net surplus at deficit, you'll see that it's a positive $1.344 million. So as far as the ISB calculation goes with respect to a balanced budget, we plan on bringing you a balanced budget next month when we do the tentative budget. You'll see some fluctuation up above in some of those numbers right there. That's the way they've come out right now. We're actually going to adjust the property tax levy to try and balance those funds out a little bit so we don't have those big swings of a big positive in the operation and maintenance fund, which you'll see is a large positive of 3.88 now, down to a large negative in transportation at 2.7 million. So we'll smooth some of that out with the property tax levy. When you go down into the next section, the non-operating funds, those are all the other funds that we have in the district. And so you'll see in that first section the internal service funds, and then next debt service. And really what I want you to focus on here are the capital funds down below. In the capital funds there, you'll see what's called Fund 60. The ARP ESSER spending that we were talking about and the ESSER 2 spending that we were talking about, all those large capital dollars for the HVAC projects, those are all running through that fund right there. So you'll see some really, really large dollar amounts in there, like $90+ million for revenue and expenses. These will take care of themselves and just kind of go away as we move into the next budget year. But these are very, very high, and customarily you're not going to see numbers this large. This is just reflective of everything that we're working on, with the ARP ESSER. Now the line item under that is what we call Fund 90 or Fund 92. That's the health, life, safety funds. That's all the things that have been identified in our 10-year life surveys where the architects come out and walk through our buildings and find things that really need to be corrected on our buildings. So this upcoming fiscal year, we're actually, if you look again way over in the right-hand column under the FY24 budget, you'll see a large deficit of $11.97 million. That's really being generated out of that health life safety spending. Now, we do have fund balance in that account. So we've talked in a couple of meetings about the corporate personal property replacement tax money coming in much higher than anticipated. We've deposited some of those monies into Fund 90 to be able to take care of some of these expenses that we knew were coming up, from the 10-year health life safety surveys. Primarily what's in there are roofs. We have Whitehead, Barber, Ellis, Kennedy, Guilford, and West that are going to be getting new roofs. And then the other real big spend in there is security vestibules, and then also fire alarms for Risa, Lincoln, Jefferson, Eisenhower, and Barber. So those are the big spends. So when you see it and when we talk about whether we have a balanced budget or not, we're really going to be talking about the operating funds here, because that's how the State Board of Education really determines whether you have a balanced budget. But we will overall be deficit spending next year because we're going to spend down some of our capital reserves to be able to do these health life safety projects. So when you see the budget coming through next month, you'll see lots of different numbers that kind of make up all these numbers. They won't be exactly the same because we're still doing some fine tuning, but I wanted you to at least get a look at it and get familiar with the terms of the operating funds versus the non-operating funds that we'll talk about, when we bring the tentative budget through in August and then the final budget through for approval in September. So questions on that. We'll go into a lot more detail, obviously, next time around.
Mrs. Haley?
You mentioned Fund 90, but I don't see that on here. Is that just a...
Yeah, it's Fund 90 or 92. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's rolled into 92 here. So it starts with a 9. Thank you. So.
Any other questions?
Okay.
The FY24 tentative budget will be brought to the board at the August committee meeting, along with the notice of public hearing on the FY24 tentative budget and the resolution directing publication of the notice. Now we will have a preview of the consent items. We have one item on the consent agenda. That's the NIA Sub-Region 2 ballot. Every 2 years, NIA holds election for executive board spots, one for a district administrator and one for a member at large for each sub-region. NIA provides the opportunity for anyone in the district leadership to run in an election to be part of their overall executive board. This now completes the report for the Planning and Development Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McCall. I will now present the items for the Governance Committee. The first item was discussed at our recent board retreat. And the recommendation is to change the regular meetings from 2 meetings per month to 1 regular meeting per month. As previously noticed at our January retreat, we can review whether we need to return to 2 meetings per month. Are there any questions or comments regarding the meetings? Concerns? Mr. Carpenter.
Thank you. I just wanted to see if we could get I think one of the biggest questions we had was how this would affect the discipline timeline, and so I just wanted to see if we could get a rundown on how that would affect that.
Excellent question, and Mrs. Lawrence is prepared to discuss that. I think that is certainly our greatest concern as well, going from potentially 4 hours of closed session time down to 2, and how would we be able to make that work, as well as meet the needs of our students with a longer time in between meetings. So, Mrs. Lawrence.
Good evening again. My team took a hard look at all of the discipline data over the last couple of years to look at when the incident occurred and when the discipline went to board. And we have a variance in how that is the time lengths at which it took students to get to board for various reasons, such as the student has an IEP, which then they have to have a manifestation determination review, which it takes, like, the parent could delay that for 10 days because we have to offer them 10 days in advance of that notice of that meeting. So that could delay. Then if that's an expulsion, that could delay another 10 days when we give the parent enough time to schedule the expulsion hearing. So now you're looking at 20 days out already. And so looking back at all of our data, I feel very confident that we can take students to board in an appropriate manner as we've been the last several years. That's number one. And number two, we've had a plan in place for several years, which includes safety transfers if necessary. So if it's an offense that we do not want to keep the student within the zone school, for example, it's a group violence offense, and there's multiple students that would need to stay at the school, we may separate them so that we don't have any further occurrences. So we may, if there's 3 students, we may send them to 3 different schools. That's one. If it's a weapons violation, we may, if the building principal requests a safety transfer, we would ask the other principals to accept that safety transfer pending board approval of the disciplinary packet. So we have plans in place that we already utilize to for that gap in between the discipline offense and the board action. One other thing that we did put in place in the last couple of years is short-term and long-term ROP, which are choice programs for the parents. They can opt into those, and that would be online, online virtual learning for the student, and that would be in lieu of that safety transfer. We've had a lot of success with that. Parents do opt into that. They don't want a lot of parents don't want their students to stay in the building after the disciplinary event while pending for the, I don't know how really to say, but, anticipated maybe another offense might happen. So those are kind of a couple of the things that we've already had in place that I think that we'll continue to have in place that will address any of those gaps. And then we also have very strict timelines in student services that we will make sure that our principals adhere to with packet submission, revision, and ultimate turn-in for us to get it to you in time.
Anyone else?
Can I just follow up on
Sure.
The other part of that is the length of closed session. We're still going to have twice as many students to talk about in each closed session, I think, right?
Our discipline has been down drastically this year. I hope with, a couple of the things that we're implementing next year that will continue to reduce. But we do have a plan to get you packets ahead of time as well as you get the summary with the expulsions. We plan to give you that summary with the EIAs as well so that you can review those packets, and if there's any follow-up that you need from us prior to closed session that we can answer for you, we will do that.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Any questions? So I think that given specifically the summary ahead of time, and we review the summary, that we can, instead of going through the summary during closed session, we can just dive right into the questions. And that would allow us to expedite the time that you're concerned about, Mr. Carpenter. And I personally think that it is definitely worth a try. This is something, that reflects our state. And I really believe that if we take a look at the areas where we're spending a lot of time and how we can condense that and yet get the outcome that we are expecting, I believe it can work.
Can I just mention one other thing I just remembered I forgot to tell you?
Sure.
Is that students on EIAs, once the parent signs that EIA, they can automatically move to that alternative placement. Summit is the only location that is not allowing that to happen right now, but I have been working with Nicole Brady-Corbett, who's over there, to see if we can maybe move faster on EIAs. I know that they won't change their process on expulsions, but maybe they will on EIAs. So that's in progress too. So hopefully we can come to a resolution there.
Anyone else? Mrs. Bennett?
So when you're saying give packets in advance, so right now we get them about 2 business days in advance. So do you have an idea of what would be a time frame?
Yeah, we're looking at a hard deadline on Wednesday at noon.
Okay. So, okay.
And thank you. That I can adjust that back another day if needed. we will have extra time in there to make sure packets are revised and reviewed prior. If that's not enough time, we can move that back.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, Mrs. Lawrence, you have done a phenomenal job and doing the research and coming up with how this could potentially work. And I can't stress it, that extra time. Again, it's all about how we use time, right? So if you really have some concerns and feel like this is not workable, please express that now so we can have a discussion about it. But I noticed that we spend a lot of time in closed session on discipline, as we should. We don't want to. That's not something we want to speed across. But I believe that it gives us an opportunity, number one, to get information ahead of time, so we're not cramming on a Friday night, and for some may not be able to get to it until Sunday, and the board meeting is on Tuesday. So look at the window of the span of time that is actually given to us to prepare. So it is important that you express your concerns and feedback now of any concerns of how this may happen. Or if you, June or Mrs. Stanford.
I think that, as long as administration is organized and we have things in a timely manner, I think it can work. And all we can do is try and give it a try.
Mr. Carpenter.
Thank you. I'm in favor of trying also. I think one thing that might be helpful is if we could just get notified when the packets are available so that we don't have to check. Just send out an email. The packets are available now. So I think that would be helpful.
Okay. Mrs. Bennett?
So the draft schedule is all the way out until June. So is there a set amount of time that we're going to try this out, or just want to know what I'm signing up for? That's all.
So, there's always going to be a draft. So the governance committee meet and we finalize it, and we'll have enough time to make sure that you have enough time to review it. So you can be at peace and knowing that you will have adequate time to review. And this is a test of how organized and timely we can all be, and see what comes of it. Anyone else?
I think we will just have to prepare to be here till 10 o'clock on the board meeting night.
So keep in mind, perhaps for those of us who have questions where it relates to EIAs, and we should, right? We should have questions. So I was sharing with someone earlier. Change is, first of all, inevitable. Secondly, we have in place that the board members need to show up in the community, right? I think that this gives us an opportunity to be more visible in the community and engage. This is something new and something different, and is not customary. Again, I believe that it will work, and we may be here till 10 o'clock, but sometimes we're here to 9. And we have 3 meetings a month, right? So if we're here at 10 o'clock, this board is very engaging, and we have a lot of questions, we have a lot of discussion, and all of that is good. But I really believe that this will work, and and you'll probably thank me later.
Yeah, I was just being facetious. I don't mind. I do want to try this out, and I do appreciate you pointing out the fact that it does give us a time, it frees up our time to be at the schools and engaging with the community.
Thank you. And do keep in mind that we have the flexibility. Mrs. Lawrence, I think that we're just on discussion now. I appreciate you. Thank you. We have that flexibility to go back to the 3. But what's going to happen, you all are going to get really adjusted to the 2 board meetings, and you all are going to figure out a way to make this work because you love having that time. So just to add, it's worth a try. Ms. Stanford?
The only thing I would add is that meeting fatigue is a real thing. And if we continually have to go back into close after our regular meeting, I'm not going to be happy. I don't think Ms. McCall is going to be happy. But just so that we have the flexibility that we can go back if we feel that.
So the information is going to be provided. Mrs. Lawrence have reassured us that she can even push it back a day. So hypothetically speaking, she have it ready on Tuesday. We have an entire week. Imagine that. So if we get it on a Tuesday evening, you have Wednesday and Thursday, Friday night, some go to City Market, just looking at your schedule, family night, Saturday, it all depends. It's really up to you. It allows board members to be flexible in their time of preparing. So, anyone else? Okay, very good. Thank you. Moving on, the next item was also discussed in our board retreat, the proposed change to Board Policy 2.230 to increase public speakers' time from 2 minutes to 3 minutes. Are there any questions or comments? Ms. Stanford.
Is the total amount of time allotted still going to be 30 minutes?
Yes.
Okay, that was my only question.
Anyone else?
I just have a comment. I'm really excited about this change. I think it's really valuable that people come here and are willing to share their thoughts and their ideas, and so I am just really excited about the change, and I hope that people take advantage of the extra time.
So it is really anyone, Mr.
You got to go.
No, go ahead.
I think for me, just to echo some of the kind of the sentiment of how we're trying to be productive. This came from an email from the public that was very well thought out and, showed that this is best practice and that we were kind of the anomaly as far as the amount of time allotted in different school districts. Obviously not talking to a lot of people in the public personally, but maybe listening. I think that's what this board wants to be. At least that's the vibe that I get. We want to be able to be approachable, to be innovative, to make sure we're listening to the voices of the parents, of the citizens of this community. I think this is just a testament to that because we got one email. I think we talked about it for 45 seconds. We said that's a good idea, and and here we are. So I think it's we're agile enough. We're not in a position where we think we know all the answers, and so I think that public comment or those public questions are only going to make this board and this community stronger.
Anyone else? So just to add. Not every request from the public will be granted, okay? So we should get an understanding with that. We can't grant every request, but we can certainly do what we can to meet our community members halfway. And the 30 minutes is 30 minutes, and and Lori, you can assist me with this, or excuse me, Mrs. Goldsmith. There's a maximum of 10 speakers, correct?
Still 30 minutes.
Yeah, correct. So still 30 minutes with a maximum, no more than 10 public speakers. So if there's more than 10 cards provided, then they're taken in the order that they are received, and then the other speakers will be given a chance to be the first speakers at the next meeting. Anyone else? Thank you very much. So both the proposed schedule change and the revision of Board Policy 2.230 will return for a vote on July 18, 2023 meeting. I asked for the next item to be included on the agenda. This is a proposed change in the district mission statement. So mission statements really speaks to the organization. And from my understanding, and Dr. Jarrett can add light on this, the initiative where it relates to equity was initially presented back in 2018, 2019.
The original mission statement that we're recommending, and the administration certainly supports the recommendation to revise tonight's mission statement. But the original mission statement was part of a community process in 2014, 2015, which was prior to the creation of an equity, diversity, and inclusion department. A decision was made during the 2021 school year, coming off of the pandemic, rather than having a community-wide conversation revisiting mission, vision, values, we instead focused exclusively on the system-wide framework and our plan for supporting our schools. And we also had a separate equity team that was working during that time frame under the leadership first of Dr. Tiffany Brunson, and then under the leadership of Dr. Antoine Reed. We had a group of board members as well as community members that were part of a separate conversation about equity, diversity, and inclusion. And we developed an equity vision statement where we talked about, and Board President Pearson referred to that in her opening remarks tonight. I think what is on the table tonight is an attempt to take a first step of bringing those two items together to include the word equity in our district's mission without a full-fledged revision process. This current mission, vision, values, and strategic plan would be up for board revision in 2024. And I think Board President Pearson suggested that not waiting until 2024 to make sure equity is not only prominent in our language, in our equity work, but that it is prominent in our mission statement, an action I wholeheartedly support. And then as we go into a new community-based strategic planning process during the 2024 school year, so as we get into the spring and into the summer, we can look at that and I think take a fresh look at all of those kinds of items, and if we want to make more wholesale changes. But I think this allows us the ability to make sure that equity is prominently displayed in our mission statement in the meantime, without engaging in a full community process in the short term, knowing that this is just going to hold us over until we can get full community input when the current strategic plan ends. So I think that was our attempt here, and Board President Pearson, I think, made an excellent suggestion to do so, and our management team fully supports that decision.
Thank you very much. So as I forestated, equity is frequently used more of a buzzword, and when I look at the span of time that we have been working with the equity initiative, that it really needs to be a part of the heart of our school district. And so I wasn't trying to complicate the mission. I actually wanted to simplify it. And I think it's good. It will read the same way, other than an equitable first-class education. Really simple, something that will stay on the forefront of our mission as we pursue and continue to execute equity in the total aspect of our district. And with that being said, we understand that equity, when you are extending equity and considering equity in situations, depending on the circumstance, really just offers more to those who need, to keep it simple. It just offers more to those who need it. So as I advocate for equity, and we collectively as a board embrace equity, and as our diversity, equity, and inclusion team work what they're doing, that we want to make sure, I'm asking community members, parents, to work with us. If, for an example, I'll give you a perfect example. There was one of our school principals had a wonderful idea to motivate students to turn in their work early or ahead of the other high schools, standard kind of practice, for lack of a better word. It was challenged because it didn't appear to be equitable. Again, I never want to interfere with our school administrators and their goals and desires for academic achievement. I believe that we can work together and understand the purpose, and I'm asking our students and parents to create habits that will not put our students in a position to fall behind when they could be on track. This is about a need, meeting the needs of our students. So whatever you can do to make sure that students stay on track, keep in mind, we have teachers that is dumped on and have to grade work and report out grades at the 11th hour. So in some cases that may be necessary, but if we can minimize that, that would be wonderful. So it is just good to be able to look through the lens of others while we are executing the equity initiative. Thank you. So that will be the mission statement. We are looking forward to including the word equity in. The last item is the preview consent agenda. Are there any questions or on the governance consent items?
I just have a follow-up.
Yes.
So regarding the packets, I know that Jen Lawrence said that behavior packets could be to us in advance, but does that mean the packet in its entirety or just the discipline portion? Oh, okay, whole packet. Lovely. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, are there any public speakers? I didn't get any information. So we have none. Therefore, everybody is really packing up. If there's no further comments on or agenda recommendations by the board, I'll take a motion and a second to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Have a good night.